What is up, YouTube? How's everybody doing today? This Everything is Tech here from everythingistech.com and socialwallpapers.net. I hope you guys had a good Thanksgiving, because by the time this video comes out, Thanksgiving will be done with, and so I hope you guys did have a good Thanksgiving with your family or with your relatives or friends and family. So anyways, on to the topic. In this video, I will be covering some photography tips, and this is just my own personal introduction to photography, and this video is to help all those people who really don't know where to start. So in this video, I'm going to try to cover all the basics and all the necessities you really will need to know, and I'll try my best to finish this in a short amount of time. So just a really quick note, I'm not really a professional cameraman or photographer, I just know the basics, and I mean, I've done a few jobs here and there, and I got a small pay, but I'm not professional, but I do think I know the basics that can help you get onto the right track, so hopefully this video does help you out. So this is really quick and small information about me. I started photography when I was about 5 years old, so it's been a long time. And I mean, I started using my parents' film cameras, and then I eventually got my own film camera, and then my parents started getting the digital camera, and from there it just progressed. And up to today, I think I have about 2 cameras that I really use a lot: my Nikon Coolpix L110 and my Canon T3. So enough of that me, and let's go on and continue on into the video. So before you go ahead and make your decision on buying whatever camera you want to buy, there are some things I would really recommend you knowing, and these are some technical terms. And some of the technical terms are ISO, RAW, exposure, and aperture. And these are some really important key things you'll need to know so you can start, taking some great photos. So first thing is ISO, which is also known as the ASA. And this pretty much tells you how sensitive the sensor of your camera is to light. So the higher the ISO, the more light that your photo will have. So honestly, as far as ISO goes, you will need to start worrying about this after you take your first couple of 100 shots. And pretty much how I go by and how most photographers go by is 100 to 200 ISO is used for just when you're outdoors and there's a great amount of sunlight. 100 to 200 ISO would be pretty ideal for that situation. When you're outdoors and you're trying to take pictures in like the evening time when there isn't that much light, the ISO should be anywhere from 100 to 800 ISO depending on how much light there is, and you can pretty much judge for yourself. And of course, this is all about experiments, so you can always try ahead and use different ISOs and see what really suits your needs. And then finally, at night, you should use anywhere between 400 to 1600 ISO. And again, experiment with them and see what really suits your needs and how well your photos come out with different ISO settings. The next term is RAW format files, and RAW files are pretty much your digital negatives, or what people consider them to be digital negative files. Pretty much the difference between RAW and JPEG is that RAW files are lossless, so you have all the pixels that your camera can capture. And without RAW files, editing would be really hard, because with the RAW files, since you have all the pixels and all the lossless amount of quality in the photos, you can do almost any type of edit on RAW files as compared to a JPEG, where you're really limited on the quality and pixels. Then last but not least is aperture, and aperture is pretty much the amount of opening on your lens, and it's also known as the f-stop. So pretty much the aperture is found on lens, and the basic principle is the wider the aperture, the more light that will come in. So the more opening the aperture has, the more light that will come through the lens. Part of the video, I'm going to be talking about what kind of gear you have to buy. But if you're going to be buying compact gear such as a digital compact camera or a point and shoot camera, this guide is not for you, because one, that's really not that complicated to use and learn as compared to an SLR camera, because with SLR cameras you have to learn all the features, how to really use the camera. So first thing is, if you're going to be buying a camera and you have some experience with cameras, I would definitely recommend SLR cameras, because one, the price difference isn't really that big. The SLR cameras are maybe $100 more, and they just start benefiting you so much after in the future that it just saves you money in the end. But my opinion is, if you're not going to be buying an SLR camera, this guide isn't for you. But for all those people who are going to be buying an SLR camera, this guide is for you. So the first thing I want to talk about is the gear and what kind of camera you should buy. So let's face it, today we have many camera brands that sell SLR cameras, but which one is the right camera brand for you? And honestly, you can go ahead and buy any SLR camera you want, and if you have any questions, you can feel free to message me. But as far as camera brands go, I either go with Nikon or Canon. So the reason I would recommend a Nikon or a Canon would be because of the awesome customer support. I've never had a problem with Nikon or Canon cameras, and of course when I've had any questions, I could call the customer service and they would help me out with no problems, no questions asked, which is fantastic. And I mean, honestly, I don't mean to be biased. I have nothing against other company brands with cameras, but I just trust Nikon and Canon, and I feel like I get what I pay for. And honestly, Nikon and Canon are pretty much the really competitors. They are ahead in the camera industry, so I would go with either Nikon or Canon. So for the first Nikon camera I would recommend is the Nikon D3100. This is one of the best entry-level DSLR cameras I've used on the Nikon side. It takes fantastic shots, and honestly it does take a little bit of time to get used to the overall interface, but once you're used to it, it is a breeze to take photos with. This offers 14.2 megapixels. It also comes with its 18 to 55 millimeter lens kit. And also this does take 1080p video HD at 24 frames per second, which is not bad at all. So for $600, I don't think you can go wrong with this camera. It's an awesome entry-level DSLR camera for the Nikon side. Camera on my list for the Nikon side is the D5100, and honestly, if you have the budget, $800 is not a bad price for the D5100. It's a fantastic camera. It takes some nice shots, and then, I mean, I've never actually... The second camera on the Nikon list for me is the D5100. I mean, I've never actually had the tendency to use one of these for myself, but I have tested these out, and I mean, I really like the interface of it, and overall the grip of the camera is really nice, and you know, just overall I really do like the camera. It's not a bad price for $800, and it will actually keep you up to date because it does have 16.2 megapixels, which isn't that bad, and you can always upgrade the lens on this, and overall this is not a bad camera at all. But my first choice and recommendation for the Nikon side would be the D3100 because it's really cheap. $600 is not a bad price, and it really has some nice features. But if you can go a little bit on and beyond, the D5100 is not a bad choice at all. Now on to the Canon side, and the only reason I really like Canon is one, because of their amazing customer support, and two is because they're really versatile with their pricing, because they offer cameras at appropriate pricings with, you know, nice features. So you obviously are not gonna get ripped off when it comes to buying Canon SLR cameras. So the first camera on my list for the Canon side is the Canon T3 Rebel. It comes with a 12.2 megapixel camera with the 18 to 55 millimeter lens kit, and it does take 720p video. And honestly, for $480, I don't think you can go wrong. I personally own the camera. I have my review up on YouTube, so you can click somewhere down here or in the video, on the video, you can see my review. I think it's a fantastic camera, and for $600 when I first bought it, I still think it's worth the money. So for $480, it's definitely a bargain. So it just has some awesome features. I'll have all the links to these cameras down in the description bar below, and you can also nab yourself a small discount from using the description bar. So the first camera on my list is a Canon T3. The second camera on the Canon side that I would recommend is the T1i. This is a fantastic camera. My friends own this, and they really do love it. And honestly, this is a bargain price. $580 is not a bad price at all. It's $100 more than the T3, and it has 1080p video recording and 18 megapixels. Or rather, I think this does actually have only 15 megapixels, 15.1 megapixels, and full 1920 by 1080 HD video recording. So honestly, for the $100 extra, if you can afford the T1i, is a fantastic camera. Of course, there are a little bit more features on the camera, so if you do go with a T1i, you will have to spend a little bit more time to get used to the interface, but after that, this camera will be really easy to learn and to use, and you'll definitely enjoy it. For the extra $100 coming from the T3 to the T1i, the T1i is a fantastic camera for the price. Two cameras on the list for Canon is the T2i and the T3i. Honestly, there's no really such big difference between the two. The only big difference on the T3i is that the screen can actually come out, which, I mean, I guess that might be useful to some people who really do a lot of videography, but I mean, there's no such big difference between the T3i. And then, honestly, if you can go a little bit more beyond than the T1i, if you have about $650 to spend on the T2i, I guess this would be the best camera for entry levels, because one, this is really kind of appropriately priced. $650 is not bad at all, and it has some really nice features. It has 18 megapixels, and it also has 1080p 30 frames per second video capture, so that is awesome. And honestly, this would be my most recommended Canon camera. If you don't have the money, you can always buy it later, because the great thing with SLR cameras is that if you buy a camera from the same company as far as SLR goes, you can always just sell the body. So what I would honestly recommend is, you can start off with the lowest camera, which is the T3, and it's not bad starting off with the T3, but once you start getting used to the interface on the T3, and you have a good amount of lens, if you have like 2 or 3 or 4 lens, you can eventually sell the T3 body only for about, right now at the moment you probably get about 450, 400. You could probably just sell the body and then buy a T1i or T2i and upgrade from there depending on your budget. So that is a fantastic thing with SLR cameras. So honestly, my most recommended product from the Canon line would be the T2i, and if you can't afford it, you can always go back to the T1i or even the T3. But if you're a videographer and you probably want to get something like the T2i with a screen that can come out, the T3i would be a great choice. Now, from the Nikon side, my most recommended camera would be the D3100. If you can go a little bit on and beyond with the D5100, that would be a great choice as well, but the D3100 is not a bad camera at all. The last and final topic I'd like to talk about is lens, and without the lens on a camera, you will never be able to take the best photos you can. And honestly, if you don't have such a good camera, you can always compensate it with some nice lens kits. So there are definitely many lens kits out there in the market today, and it honestly depends on what kind of shots you're going to be taking. So the first lens everyone does usually have is the 18 to 55mm lens kit, and with this lens kit you will find out where your photos are going to be lacking, because once you're done with taking photos, you should all examine those photos. You should check the ISO, you should check the aperture, you should check the focal length, and then eventually you should check what they lack. So for example, if you take a photo of a bird but you're a little bit too far away and you really could not take the best photo possible, then you knew you needed a telephoto lens so you could have zoomed in a little bit more further in so you could have gotten a better photo. But regardless of what kind of lens you get as your second lens kit, I would definitely recommend getting the Nifty 50, also known as the 50mm primed lens kit, and it's available on both Nikon and Canon's lens site. And they're only about $100. For Canon, it's about $110. For Nikon, I think it's about $135, and it's a fantastic lens kit. It is really for a close-up lens shot, so if you want to go take bouquet shots or photos of people, it's a fantastic lens kit. I also have a review up on my channel for that, and you can click somewhere down below to check that video out right now. So if you are confused on what your second lens should be, the 50mm should definitely be a nice investment. You should definitely check it out. And the next and final thing I really do want to talk about is improvement and how you can improve in taking photos. Now, the bottom line is you're not going to see improvements in the first few months. You have to constantly take shots and photos of anything you see, really, and that's how you start improving. If you really don't go on daily trips, or you don't go on vacations, if there is nothing really that interesting around you, you could always start walking around your block, or even you can start from the back of your house or your garden, and you can start taking photos from there to take photos of trees, flowers, and anything that interests you. So once you're done with that, go back home and check your photos out, check the different settings, check the different ISO, aperture, focal length, and all the great stuff like that, and then see what you could have done to improve your photos, and then you're going to start getting better. And then also, once you have some money, you should definitely start investing in lens kits, because after that, you really are going to need some more lens to get better at photography, and you definitely need to get some exposure on other types of lens and how they work. And again, you have to always remember photography is a really expensive hobby, so if you really do want to get into photography, you need some motivation, determination, a little bit of patience, and you'll definitely get there. So this has been Everything is Tech from everythingistech.com, socialwallpapers.net. Thank you for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you have any questions or comments, please leave it down below or message me. And once again, thanks for watching, and peace out.